Well, many of my best lessons were learned in the fourth grade. Unfortunately, not necessarily about my school lessons, but my life lessons I learned in the fourth grade. And one of those lessons centered around a Bible verse that says, "You shall not bear false witness." That's one of the 10 Commandments, the ninth commandment, in fact. And there was in our school, in my grade, in my class, a little girl named Marilyn Kirksey. And Marilyn had a little bit of a problem in the fourth grade in that she whined all the time about everything. And when we would go out to play, we'd all choose up sides. And she said, "I want to be on his side." And everybody just rolled their eyes. That's Marilyn Kirksey. Well, one Monday morning, we were in class, and it was on that day that we would always bring our lunch money. Now, it was $1 a day to buy lunch, but if you brought $1 on Monday, you bought your lunch for the whole week. Isn't that amazing? And so all of us would bring our $1 on Monday. And we were sitting in class getting ready to get started with the class that day, and Miss Hortense Knuckles, our fourth grade teacher, was getting the day started off, and suddenly Marilyn put her hand up and said, "Miss Hortense, Miss Hortense." And Miss Hortense said, "Yes, Marilyn, what is it?" She said, "Nickie got my dollar. Nickie got my dollar." Well, I was pretty shocked because I was the only Nickie in the class, and I knew that I hadn't gotten her dollar. So Miss Hortense came walking back to where Marilyn was sitting, and I sat right behind Marilyn. And she said, "Nickie, give Marilyn her dollar." I said, Miss Hortense, I didn't get her dollar." "Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He got my dollar." And she said, "Stand up, Nickie. Let me see what's in your pocket." Well, I reached in my pocket, and of course, I had $1. But it was my dollar. It was the dollar I was bringing to buy my lunch for the week. And she said, "Give that dollar to Marilyn." And I said, "No, ma'am. This is my lunch money." And she said, "If you don't give Marilyn that dollar, I'll take you in the coat closet and I'm going to give you a paddling." And I said, "But Miss Hortense, give her the dollar right now." So I thought about it for just a second, and I thought, now, I don't really want a paddling, but if I give away this dollar, I can't buy my lunch. And I loved lunch. And so I just put my dollar back in my pocket. I said, "No, ma'am." So she said, "All right, come on." And she went to her desk and she got her big paddle. She called it Big Bertha. And it was a huge paddle with holes bored in it. And she took me into the coat closet and she said, "All right, bend over and grab your ankles." And I did. And man, I heard that paddle go back. And I heard it coming forward. Pow! Oh, I jumped straight up in the air. She said, "I'm not finished." And she gave me about 5 licks. And, I was a boy, and I tried not to cry, but after about the 3rd lick, I just couldn't keep from it. And I began to cry a little bit. And so she turned, after she had finished, she said, "Now, when you get your face dried up, you can come on back in the room and sit down." So in a minute, I wiped my eyes and tried to look like I hadn't been crying, of course. And I opened the door to come out, and of course everybody looked, and that was embarrassing. And then when I walked past Marilyn, or got to Marilyn, she just looked around. She said, "Nee." And I was so upset. And so I sat down very carefully because it was a little hard to sit down right then. And Miss Hortense said, "Okay, let's get started with our lessons for today." And so she said, "Everybody get out your speller. We're going to start with spelling today." And so all of a sudden, Marilyn says, "Miss Hortense, Miss Hortense." And I thought, "Oh no, what now?" And she said, "I found my dollar. It was in my spelling book." And Miss Hortense's face turned so red. And she said, "Marilyn Kirksey, do you mean to tell me that you accused Nickie of getting your dollar when you didn't know for sure he had? And he got a whipping." She said, "Miss Hortense, don't holler at me." And she said, "I ought to do more than holler at you. I ought to take you in the coat closet and give you a whipping." And I said, yeah. But That was before I had learned about forgiveness. And so she said, listen, don't you ever, ever, ever accuse anybody of doing anything unless you know for sure that they did it. And that was the lesson I learned that day, how important it is for us to make 100% certain before we make any accusation that we know that accusation is true. Now, I will say this just as kind of a closing thought. Marilyn grew out of her whining. She became one of my best friends as the years went by and one of the most popular girls in the school. But in the 4th grade, she was a little bit of a problem. And so I encourage you to, children and parents, don't be whiners and don't ever, ever accuse anybody of anything unless you know for 100% certain that they're truly guilty.